You're listening to Hashtag Impact, a podcast about stuff that matters. I am Regina Larco, founder of Hashtag Impact, and you are tuning in as we are preparing for our brand new season. In the upcoming season 5, we will bring you thought-provoking stories inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals. To make this our most impactful season yet, we are already in conversation with stakeholders across the world that tackle the global goals with their innovative solutions. In this episode that was recorded in early 2020, you will follow our host Carol Lee to Seoul to hear about the non-profit organization Teach North Korean Refugees, TNKR. This conversation opened my eyes to solutions to ensure equal access to all levels of education for people in vulnerable situations. That's one of the targets laid out by the Sustainable Development Goal 4. But there's even more. This episode also highlights the complexity of the Korean history and identity that goes so much deeper than we can usually read on the news. I love how the team over at TNKR shares about defining and measuring impact on a very personal level, because they can feel and see the difference their programs make on the refugees' faces that they work with every single day. For more information about Hashtag Impact, please visit hashtagimpact.com. And now enjoy this week's episode.
Hello, Hashtag Impact listeners. This is Carol Lee, one of your Season 5 ambassadors, bringing you today's episode from Seoul, South Korea. Today, we are sitting down with Eungu Lee and Casey Lartigue, co-founders of Teach North Korean Refugees, an organization dedicated to empowering North Korean refugees through education, advocacy, and support. Since its founding in 2013, Teach North Korean Refugees, or TNKR for short, has assisted over 400 refugee learners, with some even moving on to becoming TED Talk speakers, authors, and global leaders. We wanted to sit down with Eungu and Casey for this episode because we are exploring the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education. The goal is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. We felt TNKR is doing this important work for North Korean refugees and are excited to be sitting with the organization's co-founders today. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to start off for our listeners who want to know a little bit more about TNKR. What types of educational opportunities do you folks provide for North Korean refugees?
You want to go first?
Yeah, you can first.
Okay, all right. So our program has 3 main parts now, and we divide them into tracks. Track 1 is flexible English tutoring. Track 2 is public speaking. And track 3 is about education and employment opportunities for North Korean refugees. And you can break it down a little more than that. But basically, track 1 provides the refugees the opportunity to choose as many language helpers as they want for whatever reason they want. If they want to study grammar, pronunciation, conversation, testing, whatever the reason may be, we welcome them to join us. Then the second part of our program is public speaking. And this is for those refugees who would like to speak out, who have stories to tell, who want to talk about their personal stories or talk about what happened in North Korea or China. And then the third part is employment and education opportunities for North Korean refugees. And the main point of that is to help them with getting jobs. Because as wonderful as it may be to tell their stories or to talk about reunification or whatever high-level 6-party talks with China and Russia and South Korea and the US and whatever, it's the most important that they actually get jobs and so they can take care of themselves.
Yeah, so since 2013, we started this program. But so far we had 99 matching session. And then more than 400 students joined.
442.
And then more than 900.
1,004
Okay,
volunteer
so
tutors,
the list
mentors, and
updates.
coaches.
So it's a lot of people got involved for helping North Korean refugees. And then the refugee found us to join, and still we are around 20 student waiting list to join our matching session. So it's great.
Wow. Yeah. And can you kind of walk us through a matching session, since you're about to hit your 100th one coming up, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, it's a process, and the volunteers don't always like it because we really do have expectations for them. So it starts off, first of all, with refugees contacting Eungu. I mean, some contact me if they're really brave, but mainly they will contact her or go to our website and apply directly to our organization. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that basically we put out a call for volunteers, Facebook, any social media. Wherever I give speeches, I always recruit people to join. We just hold orientation sessions. Come on in, take a look at what we're doing. The tutors then must apply. And they apply by submitting a resume that is tailored for the refugees. And so we want to give them the signal from the very beginning that this is about the refugees and that it is centered on them. Because some people will just send us a PDF without, the resume that they always send out. But we need a resume that will express and let the refugees know when it is they are available, their particular teaching interest, and how they can be good tutors for the refugees. So then they apply with the resume. We need other things such as state level ID, and they have to sign a waiver, and then they have to come to an orientation session. And at the orientation session, that's where we tell them, don't do this, don't do that. That this is a program that is focused on the refugees. So this is not a chance to come in and hear their stories, to interview them, become buddies, or hanging out, or dating, or just socializing, or just chit-chatting. That this is a serious program. Then after they make it through the orientation, we then have a matching session. So on Eungu's side, we will have a one-to-one interview with the refugees in which we talk with them, kind of find out what it is they want, why are they joining our program. We want to make sure that they really are eager to join us. Eungu will have an orientation with them in Korean to explain things, to make sure that they do understand deeply what it is we're trying to do. And then we bring them together, the tutors and the refugees, at a matching session. And that's where the refugees would have received about 15 to 20 resumes in advance. And then they come to a matching session, and basically they just say, I want that teacher, I want that teacher. So they get to choose as many as they want. And beautiful thing about it is that we will have these sessions starting at 2 p.m. At least once a month. And the refugees will show up hours in advance. The all-time champion showed up at 1 a.m.
1 a.m.
13 hours in advance. 13 hours in advance. And believe me, I was not happy. Because I had to come here and sign her in. And I'm showing up, I'm all grumpy. And she comes in all happy. And then she signs in. I said, I'll come back in 12 hours. So they're really eager. And we now, because of her, say don't come before 9 a.m. But still, like 7:30, 8 a.m., I can hear rustling outside the door that they've shown up because they're really eager and want to take advantage of the opportunity.
So it's one thing we can found that during the one-to-one interview before joining the orientation. I'm the student. The most of the question is that when I can join matching session. So even though they apply our program, but they should wait because we are very limited in the student and volunteers, and also we want to keep the quality of the program. So we don't just let anyone without the preparation. So the refugee kind of waiting quite long time, applying that, then want to interview and orientation and matching session. So it's always the question is when I can join. So there is kind of the popular questions among us. And also one thing I want to introduce our program is English speech contest. So far we had done 10th speech contest, and then we are the 10 winners we had, and they are through that the speech contest we met the really eagerness and motivated students. Now it's just one student studying abroad and some student got a job. So through the English speech contest, we also can see and meet the great students, especially can speak English well. So several programs really helped practically for North Korean refugees.
So Eungu mentioned the most common question that refugees will ask, and that is, when can they start? The most common question from the volunteers, would you like to guess?
Ooh, what is it?
Well, the most common question from the volunteers is, will I be chosen? Because it's the refugees are at the center. They get to choose the tutors. So the refugees really do feel empowered. And that's an important part of what we're doing. There's a North Korean refugee who was a psychological warfare officer for the North Korean regime. And he's the author of the book Dear Leader. And he is actually very close to us. And he talks about the fact, he stresses the fact that when North Korean refugees were in North Korea, that they had no choice. And that basically they had no identity. And that they had to build confidence in themselves as humans. And he says the way that we structured our program, they will build confidence in themselves. They will feel empowered because they get to choose the tutors. And there's another gentleman, Tae Young Ho, who was a former deputy ambassador to the North Korean regime who escaped from the UK. And he also talked about the beauty of our program, the fact that the refugees do get to choose. And he just said how surprised he was, because in North Korea, the teachers choose the students. And according to what the North Korean refugees have experienced when they were in North Korea, that they were always put in a position of just receiving and not in a position of being able to choose. So it is an important thing. So then when the tutors ask the question, will I be chosen? It's great because, as Eungu mentioned, on the flip side, the refugees were mentioned. They'll ask, when can they start? So it shows the kind of program that we have and the approach that we have.
Yeah, so we are really based on some principles, which are that one-to-one class. Everyone, student and teacher, should have a one-to-one class, and then they only should use English. So we don't allow any Korean, only allow the English during the classes. And then also, Casey mentioned that refugees can choose their tutors. So that is a really strong, solid principle of TNKR. I think that point makes attraction to the North Korean refugees to join our program.
All right, but I must say, Eungu did not always believe in this.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that maybe should I talk about that?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how you seem to have this really strong foundation for your organization and even just centering the refugees. I think a lot of times when we talk about helping communities, sometimes the community is not even in the conversation. So how did you even establish such as like this whole process and for it to be so successful?
I really want to hear how you explain this.
Is it quite related to my South Korean identity and my studying background and working experience, which is a really negative effect when we establish the TNKR program, because I really believe when we handle and deal with the North Korean refugees, especially helping them, I really believe that the top-down approach, because my understanding growing up here that North Korean society really passive society, so they don't know what is the freedom, and they don't know, really difficult to choose something. So even though when I work in the government, maybe I'll talk later about my background, but when I work in the government, I'm get involved in helping North Korean people that most of the program designed by the top down because South Korea's government also believe that North Korean may be very struggling to choose something. So all program like designed by the South Koreans, and the North Korean refugees just join or just attend without any decision or any free choice. So when he suggests that we should give a choice to the North Korean refugees, especially choosing their teacher, then I said, no. We will fail because they don't know how to choose or they don't know how can decide something, which is a really important point. Okay, said, no, I think why don't you give the choice to the refugees, like choose teachers, then maybe... But he kept saying that. Maybe let's do one time.
Oh, one time.
Yeah. So,
Okay, that's not true. She was ready to quit. And when we had the session, she was just sitting there frowning. And she was saying it wasn't going to work. But what happened is that the refugees came in. They had received the resumes. They had marked them up. They had like their hit list of people, of the tutors that they wanted to get. They were so enthusiastic. And she did not believe in it. It took months. And it wasn't until she had feedback sessions with the refugees that they were telling her that the things they love about it is they get to choose and they can choose as many tutors as they want. Then she came to the other extreme. They must choose. So it's not that I convinced her. It was that she saw that the refugees believed in it.
Yeah, so I should confess that I was wrong. I mean,
yes.
Yeah,
Wait, what?
I was wrong.
That's I guess it's our secret to our listeners.
Because I mean, it's my background. I'm just my situation in South Korea. I'm really believe that top down was help North Korean refugees. So. But when I see the operation of TNKR, especially bottom up approach, it's really amazing, and I can see the real impact on them. Then why I keep my belief, which is wrong. So I changed my belief and faith about the way to help North Korean refugees. So now I'm strongly believe this approach. And recently I got. Also, we got the one feedback that, TNKR is the most understanding North Korean refugees, what they want. Many organizations try to help, but they don't know. They really try to help North Korean refugees, but TNKR is one of the best organization, really understand well and right. That is a great feedback because Casey is a foreigner and I'm a South Korean, but I didn't have any experience in living in North Korea. So even if I study North Korea and I'm working related to this area, but I cannot. I'm originally naturally I cannot understand because I didn't come from there. But North Korean refugees said we are really understanding. Well about them. That is, I think, really great.
Well,
from them.
I hope it's okay if I say this, that to build on what she just said, we often have larger organizations asking us to refer North Korean refugees to them. Because they struggle to get enough people to show up for their programs and their workshops and their seminars. On the other hand, we have a waiting list. We have refugees who show up early. We just had a session Sunday morning, 9 a.m., introducing one of the refugees to a mentor. And the refugee's like, of course, I'll be there. So we don't have a problem with getting them to come out because they really value what it is that we're doing, but also the particular approach that we have, that they feel empowered.
I'm just thinking about how... for a lot of people, and maybe for some of our listeners, North Korea is such a buzzword. It's one of the most unknown countries in the world, and but it sounds like you folks have this approach that's really helping and benefiting the refugees. So putting our listeners in their shoes, what are some challenges that North Korean refugees face when coming to South Korea, and how did that help inform how you created your organization?
Okay, so I like to look at what it is the refugees say. And there was a survey done, I guess they do it every year, by the Hana Foundation. And if I recall correctly, about 26% of North Korean refugees said that employment is the number one challenge for them. And second, English. Maybe it's foreign languages, but especially English. So they cite those two things as the major challenges. Then we've heard lots of other challenges that are out there. Discrimination by South Koreans is one that's really important. Another one is the fact that they are not inside the social or even employment networks, that they don't, they can't really call on an uncle and, for a job opportunity or to introduce them to someone. And then, you want to mention any other things?
Yeah, I mean, I want to explain more about that, within the context, social context, the discrimination. So why South Koreans discriminate of North Korean refugees? I mean, we keep talking that we are one country, and that we are one history. But why we are conflict between two countries? Because as we know that North Korea had a lot of propaganda, and then they taught the people that the USA and the South Korea is one of the big enemy. So they already North Korean people had a bad image of the South Korea through the education. But it happened same thing in South Korean people, because even though I when I was young, I'm always one of the movie is that we always beat the North Korea through the kind of the war or something, and then South Korea is much better than North Korea, and North Korea is a kind of ghost of people, or they're bad people. So South Korea also taught by the government that North Korea is our enemy. So still the South Korean society changed a lot, and the young people still don't care about this kind of political issue. But still, old people or my parents, they still the kind of the stigma of the North Korean people is our enemy. So when they come, the North Korean refugees come to South Korea, and then between us, we can quickly realize their accent, because we have different accent. Then we just naturally maybe the person from North Korea. Then maybe the poor country and they're they're from the enemy country. So naturally, I mean, for the South Korean people, among the South Korean people, we are one people and same language, but we are different and have been the divided for a long time. And North Korea image of the in media as well, always develop the nuclear weapon, attack others, and even attack the South Koreans. So really, really big challenge for North Korean people through the education by the South Korean government and also media. Talk about that, the more negative side, they focus on that. So discrimination really, really happen, and on the effect on the North Korean refugees adjusting in South Korea.
Right. Both sides are just feeding certain messages about the other. And so when they come to South Korea, not only do they have to culturally adapt and their language, but just the whole situation just sounds like a lot. So why did you two decide to tackle on this issue and help this community?
In my case, because they asked for it. I mean, I had come back to South Korea as a visiting fellow at a research institute, and I met some North Korean refugees, but I wasn't thinking about doing anything. I had met them, gotten to know some, but then in early 2012, about 30 North Korean refugees have been captured in China, and they were going to be sent back. And I realized, okay, this means some of them will be tortured, maybe some of them could be executed. So I joined protests in front of the Chinese embassy in Seoul to go against this. Then, I went there several times and started recruiting other people. Let's go and protest in front of the Chinese embassy. We have to show that this is not only about South Koreans and North Korean refugees, that other people care about this. And then one day, a politician named Park Sun-young, here, South Korean politician, was holding a hunger strike in front of the embassy. And I just went over to her and I told her, I'm going to get involved. And she's like, oh, that's nice. And I'm like, no, I'm talking like life-changing moment. I'm going to make a difference. And she's like, okay, all right, well, maybe you can talk to one of my staffers. But then I happened to meet her a month later at a conference in Washington, D.C. And she's like, okay, if you're serious, then when we get back to Seoul, let's talk. And she was starting a school for North Korean refugee children. And so I became the volunteer cooperation advisor to that school. But I didn't know exactly what to do. So I just got involved with lots of things, like sending air balloons to North Korea, sending USB drives and DVDs, speaking out, organizing discussions, just trying to find the role that I could really make a difference. Then some of the North Korean refugees I knew just told me the truth one day that, we really love what you're doing, but it doesn't help those of us who are here. That we have some special problems in adjusting to South Korea. And I asked, what is it? And they said, English. Yeah, we need English. And so I said, okay, then let's get you English. And so right around that time, I met Eungu. And we started talking about, how is it that we could make a difference. And I told her about what I was doing with the North Korean refugee children, as far as helping them with learning English. And said, why don't we do the same thing with adults? Because, talking with her, I learned that there are lots of adults who are kind of falling through the cracks in South Korea. So, yeah, maybe we can help them. So that's how we started in March of 2013. So I make it clear. Some people ask, do you think refugees need English? Do you think this? Do you think that? I said, hey, they asked for it. It's not like I just came over here and said, I want to teach English to North Korean refugees. I mean, I had no background in teaching English. And so the point was they asked for it. So maybe we could do it. Yeah, maybe we could find some volunteers that I've been working with. Maybe some of them will help out. So that's how we started. So that's my side.
Yeah, so because he's a foreigner in the USA and they graduate Harvard, so maybe refugee figure out maybe they ask to study English with him, but the refugees, nobody asked me to teach English. But as I'm a South Korean, I knew that the challenge, adjustment, the North Korean refugee living in South Korea. And because the media and also I studied the North Korean studies as a master degree here.
Wow, that's interesting.
But actually the undergraduate degree is that education. But I'm really hate being a teacher in South Korea. And I just thought that before I graduate university that what should I do? My life is short. Then what can I do contribute on my nation? Then maybe it's one of the mission will be unification between two Koreas. Then how can I contribute to unification as a South Korean? And then I should learn about North Korea because I don't know about them. Even if we become a one country, we shouldn't each other. So I studied North Korean studies, and after that, I working at one of NGO for publishing North Korean human rights white paper, Korean and English. And then through that time, I met so many refugees for interview. Then I knew that the reality of North Korean society so much violate human rights, and the country is not the country that I thought and studied. Is the real society really terrible? Then also I realized that this issue both foreigners interested in than Koreans. Then I need English, so I studied again the master degree in the UK. Then the more focus on the human rights, North Korean human rights. Then came back, I became a researcher in one of the educational institute in South Korea for especially helping youth North Korean refugees adjusting in school. And through the whole academic and my working experience, I knew that English is a challenge for them, and even the English is a challenge for South Koreans. So then at the time when I working at the researcher at one of the government agents, then I met Casey. Then he talked about that this program, like helping those kind of refugees through the matching with the foreigners. So that is start. But my motivation to get involved this activity is that basically my nationality. Like I'm a South Korean. Then how can I help? How can I contribute to my nation? Something. So that is my starting point for this activity.
Wow. And from my understanding, you both had jobs. And I think I saw in an interview you actually quit your jobs to create and sustain this organization. What really drove you to actually make that decision?
I think I was out of my mind. I'm just temporary insanity. I don't know. So, no, the thing is, so Eungu talked a little bit about her background. I used to work at the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. as an education policy analyst. I'm the co-editor of the book Educational Freedom in Urban America, 5 decades after Brown versus Board of Education. I've been involved in lots of freedom causes. And I mean, I think I've done some great things, and I'm really proud and happy about those things. But after working with the North Korean refugees and working with them directly, it was different than any other work that I've done, and actually more satisfying. So I used to also be a host of a radio show on XM Radio 169 The Power, the KCR TIG show. And the problem is that when you do radio, the only time you hear from people is when they're angry at you. When you're a researcher, you might get some praise, but the people that you write about, that you do research about, in most cases, they're not going to reach out to you and tell you, hey, great paper. Hey, I read your book. I mean, most cases, you're not going to get that. But we're working with North Korean refugees directly. We receive so many messages from them, thanking us, praising us for the work that we're doing. It was just so much more satisfying than all of those other really nice things. So when I got a great job offer to go back to the USA, making about 4 times what I was making here in Korea, fantastic opportunity. I really had to think about it. But then I just thought that, this is something that we're building and that we're having a real impact, and we can feel it every day. So at that point, it's like, let's quit our jobs.
Wow.
Yeah. But I will say that in my case, I'm more like a leaf that floats in the wind. I just do what I want to do. I think for Eungu, it was actually a bigger decision.
Yeah.
Because she is a South Korean office worker. She had gotten degrees in this field, and this was part of the clear path for her. Her family, of course, was probably like, are you out of your mind? What do you mean you're going to quit your job and volunteer for North Korean refugees with no guarantee that you'd ever have any kind of a stable job situation? So I think in her case, it was actually a more dramatic thing.
Yeah, when I decided to quit job, my parents, nothing to say. I'm sure, they support my idea, but they respect me. Meaning that they don't say anything. That means I think they support. I believe that. But the one of the reason I can have a big decision for quit a job that I can see. Casey mentioned I can see the impact what I'm doing. I'm working as a researcher at the Relay to North Korean Refugee, even though we helping adjustment, especially young people in school life. But we conduct many researchers based on the interview, and even though we design the nice program for them, but always thinking some missing because we really have a good program, but really difficult and struggling to find the student who join the program. Then even though when I meet the parents, it's more like they consider us like governors, so they don't talk honestly to us. But like, yeah, you are a government researcher, so I treat you as a government researcher, but they don't treat me as a person or more like a close feeling. So it's like the talk to honestly what their difficulty or struggling. So I cannot see the impact, and the program, the design by the government is really helpful, useful. Cannot believe it. But as a job, I'm just do my best. But while I working volunteering in TNKR, I can really see the happy face. Those kind of refugees.
Yeah.
That seems like I feel like I'm alive.
Wow.
Through that the student feedback, and they really looking for us. Even if quite big decision, tough decision that kick job, but kind of decent job, I think. But I believe that, I mean, I don't know what's successful, but I believe that our program will be die, because I believe that refugee keep looking for us for program. So many NGOs has the money and they are solid the founding, but we are not. We are only have strong program. We are not enough money, but
we have people power, not financial power.
But I believe that without the big support, like a financial support, but we can survive, because our program really impact on refugee directly. I can see. So that's why I can decide to quit my job. And then also Casey, I mean, without Casey, I cannot decide that quit my job. I mean, later we will talk about that our roles in our organization. But as a foreigners, Casey really dedicated and believe what he's doing. And then also I believe that he's the first very special foreign person who really get involved deeply to help North Korean refugees. So, I mean, even though among the NGO society, especially helping North Korean refugees, I mean, I think most of them know about Casey. He really contribute a lot that this issue get more awareness to the international society because English. So, that is the kind of reasons I can quit my job.
It sounds like the human aspect is at the center and core of why you folks are doing what you're doing, and even your organization structure.
Right.
It's all about the refugees.
It's all about respecting them as individuals. We have so many volunteers and people around the world who just tell them, why don't you have this workshop? Why don't you have this seminar? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And we make it clear we only do it if it's for the benefit of the refugees, but approaching them as individuals, not just throwing them into a workshop, throwing them into a seminar. If you cannot teach one, then you cannot teach 100. Why don't you focus on one person? So that's why our ratio is kind of strange. On average, the refugees choose 3 tutors. So they always have, when they join it, they have 3 people who are there ready to help them. Again, as individuals, we set up within this kind of messenger system where the tutors are there, staff is there, and the refugee is there. Everything about that little messenger group revolves around the refugee. The sessions are based on what is it that the refugees want. So we have to tell our volunteers, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but you're going to have to be flexible. You're joining a program where the refugees are truly at the center. It's not like some marketing slogan or just some fancy proposal, but that we live it every day. Yeah, that is one-to-one, that we embrace them as individuals, and we make sure that they are empowered and that they feel it and that they know it at every moment.
You're right.
Yeah, and speaking of individual refugees, are there any individual refugees you've worked with that had a really big impact on you?
Yeah. I mean, we have several refugees and beautiful stories that they have. And we can mention the name? Or,
depends on who.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, the ones who are public, it's no problem.
Yeah, it's one of the special ambassador. The name is Uni. Univa. Yeah, I mean, when she joined the TNKR, I mean, her English is really low level. And even she doesn't want to show her face. But now she's very high potential being an international speaker. and she really studied hard with the TNKR. But one great thing is that she said publicly that I found my identity through the TNKR program. As we talked earlier, that North Korean faced a very, very serious discrimination by South Koreans. So what the North Korean response is that they hide their identity. If they change their accent, then they don't talk about their origin country. That I'm from North Korea. They were like, I'm from other South Korean province, like such as Gangwon area. So they try to more that hide their identity, but the Eunhee is the same way. I mean, she hide her identity. I mean, because she's a very bad experience, discrimination at the working place. So after that, she didn't talk about that. But after joining TNKR, why I should hide? I mean, so many people want to help North Korean refugees, especially all over the world. So after she realized that, yeah, I want to give her my stories to the world.
So when she joined us in April of 2015, and at that time, yes, she did not show her face. She did not want to use her name. In fact, she used a different name. And I think an important thing about our project is that we set it up so that we meet the refugees at their level. If they just want to study English, we're fine. If they want to engage in public speaking, how can we help you with that? So whatever level they're at, whatever goal they're trying to reach, we meet them at that level and partner with them and find volunteers. In Eunhee's case, within a year, I mean, she had improved her English a lot from just studying so hard that she was trying to find a way to thank the volunteers. And then she thought, because she knew that people wanted to hear stories of refugees, she thought maybe I could give a speech. And she did. February 2nd,
Yesterday.
2016, she gave her first public speech. So she joined us in April. And it's not that she felt so great about it, but she wanted to do something to thank people for all of the positive encouragement that she had received. And then she continued studying hard, and her English improved a lot to the point that she gave a TEDx talk in December of 2018. And actually, I was the MC of the event, and I nominated her to be the speaker at the event. So you can imagine what a proud moment it was that I'm handing her the microphone at a TEDx event, knowing where she had been just 3 years before. And I like to say about her that she went from ABC to TED, which is really an incredible thing. And she did that within 4 years. So she's one of those really just like incredible stories. And we have others who've come through our program, become authors, also public speakers. But I want to be clear, we have so many who've gotten scholarships, who've gotten jobs, who were able to graduate from college. Because of our program. So we don't really talk about them because they're not public figures and they're not trying to be. But yeah, we've had a wide range. Yeonmi Park, author of the book In Order to Live. So she joined us in 2013 for the first time, and her English, also was at a really low level. And she went abroad, studied for a couple of months, and then when she came back, she's like, I want to study like crazy. So then we actually started doing a podcast together. And then she gave a speech at One Young World that I've heard has had like 80 million views now. And I was her coach for that speech. And we knew that something good could happen from this. But I mean, I was like, wow. Beyond our expectations. That's what I've heard, 80 million views of her video, which is really incredible. But when we were working on the speech, we had no idea that she would go, that big and that quickly. And again, so many stories. Yeah.
I think it's so important because from the way it sounds like they come from a place where they aren't given a voice. And here you're giving them the tools so that they do have a voice, whether it's just getting a job or just becoming huge global leaders.
Right.
And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, but I want to be clear that so we've now had 442 North Korean refugees study in our program. I guess about 60 or so have joined our Track 2 public speaking program. So most of the refugees are not interested in trying to tell their stories. Most of them just want to get a job, have a good life.
It's normal life.
Yeah. And even of those 60 or so, most of them give one speech. Maybe at the speech contest. Most of them are not looking to tell their stories. I don't want people to think that refugees are just so eager.
Right.
In many cases, it's more that they are invited to do it. And then, but in our program, they have to want it. Okay? They don't get to the stage with us until they prove that they really want it. Because we don't want anyone being pushed or pulled. And so we have to discourage our volunteers from trying to talk to them about their stories, from trying to get them to give public speeches. We want them just to go at their own speed, like Ungi, like Yunmi, like others, that when they're ready, nobody can stop them. But we don't want them to be pulled to the stage.
And I know there's a lot of organizations not only helping North Korean refugees, but refugees all around the world globally. What do you feel like your organization has that other organizations can adopt and to support refugees around the world?
Okay, well, that's difficult because the way we developed was basically grassroots, dealing directly with the people that we're helping. So it depends on what your purpose is. I mean, if you want to have like a big organization and big seminars and conferences and fact-finding trips and doing all the big things, then you're not going to be interested in what we're doing. But if you're interested in working directly with people and developing programs that are truly effective for them, then it means you have to spend time with them. It's not the kind of thing that you can just like send them a survey and get it back and then develop your program around that, or just from your own ideas. Just, I've got a great idea. Let me go find some refugees now to do it. So you have to spend some time with the people.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that many organizations helping minority group, even the refugee or women's group, or handicapped people or single moms. But I think many organizations mistake one thing is that they don't listen what people want. I mean that thing is I also made a mistake when I'm working at the government agency. But when I'm working in TNKR, I mean we really listen what refugee want. Then after we start think about how can we make a program for them. So I think we should be really starting point that what is their voice, what is their messages, what they want. I mean that is really really important for like NGOs or especially helping minority groups. So I think
You know what? I really wish I could take Eungu in a time machine and introduce her to Eungu from a couple of years ago, because these are completely two different people. A couple of years ago, she was exactly the type who did not listen. And now she's sitting here saying, you have to listen. A couple of years ago, she didn't listen at all. And I used to tell her, you don't listen.
I think I knew the really important listening, the voices of people, but I don't know how. I think I didn't know how. Yeah, I didn't know how. But through the implement of TNKR, then I think I knew what does it mean that the listen voices from people.
So it's this process. You actually learn how to.
I mean, I think everyone knows you should.
Everyone says in theory.
Right? Yeah,
yes,
theory. Yeah.
In theory. Again, if anyone out there has a time machine, I'd like to borrow it for one day.
That is I just process. The person's evolving, right?
Yes.
To be a better person,
yes, okay.
For a better co-director or leader.
Yeah.
So I mean, the theory and practice is really difficult, but also difficult to realize about what real meaning. Yeah,
right.
Yes. But no, it's such a profound point. As I mentioned, I had to go through my own experience in 2012. That I wasn't listening. I thought I had the answers. Send the air balloons, send the USB drives, send the DVDs. Just do something. Until refugees told me that's not helpful for us. So I went through that experience before she did.
Always you're first.
Wow. I'm just... So it's interesting because it sounds like the refugees are benefiting a lot from your organization, but you both have also grown a lot through the work that you're doing as well. And I remember I was watching your TED Talk and you mentioned a quote saying, think global, act local. I was wondering what you two meant by this.
Oh, very simple. Do something where you are. I mean, there are lots of people who say, I'm going to change the world, but they don't even do something in their own neighborhood. They don't do something in their own city. And part of this is because of my own experience. When I was a researcher in Washington, D.C., actually I helped create the Washington, D.C. Opportunity Scholarship Program. I was not the main person. I was part of the coalition, but I testified before Congress and TV, radio, all those kinds of things. And then people were telling me that, hey, you should get involved with school choice in Milwaukee or you should get involved in California. But I was like, I'm in Washington, D.C. If I can't do something right here, why would I go to the other place? Just fly in for a weekend, meet with people, and then fly back. So I'm going to lay down my bucket where I am, and I'm going to do something at this place. So the whole think global, act local. I mean, and again, this is an old saying. It's not original with us, probably at least 100 years ago or so. But the point is, do something where you are.
Yeah, I mean, especially South Koreans, I mean, they really kind of they one of the dream or wish, I mean, studying abroad or living abroad, USA or other Western European countries for better life. But I mean, that is apply to me that like where I was born in South Korea, then I stay here, then I'm just contribute where I am in my country. So I mean, it's related to the Casey the point out that just do where I am now. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So now I'm not saying you have to stay in your own neighborhood or where you grew up. My point is, if you go somewhere else, you can do something there. You can do one thing to make a difference, to bring a more positive impact to people around you.
And I think that's important. If everyone actually did something, then, you know, not one person has to save the world, making a lot of heroic movies, but everyone needs to do
Probably one person should not try to save the world. Probably will end up messing things up if you really got the power.
So related to that point, I really appreciate our volunteers. I mean, most of volunteers from all over the world, but even they stay here, I mean, temporarily or permanent, but they found opportunity and to get involved where they are right now. So I'm really appreciate our volunteers.
Yeah, what countries are some of the volunteers from, actually?
We don't really check the statistics, but just eyeballing people, probably about 60% are from America, and then others, whatever, UK and Canada, Australia. Very few South Koreans, by the way. And I don't say it in a negative way, because we actually need South Koreans to help us with building the organization. As far as making connections, getting us into the local network, that's more important than tutoring. So we're happy to have international volunteers to help us as far as the tutoring, coaching, mentoring, and then South Koreans to help us with building the organization.
I see. Wow.
But I think it's, just an additional point, that it is great for the refugees that we have so many international volunteers. We've had some refugees, just so many funny things. We had one who, she grew up in North Korea. She heard only bad things about people from America, but she chose 3 tutors, I believe it was, at her first session with us. And she says the first class that she had, she was just sitting there looking at the teacher, just like, oh, finally, I'm face to face with one of them. So for a lot of the refugees, it's actually really good that we do have people from around the world who are willing to give time for them. And so, as Ingu mentioned, the most common question refugees ask us is, when can I start? But the most common question that they have is, when they actually get to meet the volunteers, is why do they want to do this? Why do they want to tutor or mentor or coach for free? And they learn that people could be making money doing this, but instead they come to us and they'll give 3-6 hours a month or whatever it is, volunteering. So for a lot of refugees, it wakes them up. And they learn about this thing called volunteering. They learn about giving your time to help others who are just complete strangers before you encounter them. So they learn these valuable lessons from meeting people from around the world.
Yeah, by the way, several refugees, it's the first time the foreigners is Casey. Then they just took a picture of a very special person. The person from the USA, but I met first time.
Yeah, but the others, they like see me on YouTube and I look like I'm a star. And I'm like, NGO star is an oxymoron. But they want to take photos and it's great. I mean, I embrace it.
They
I
love
think it's
his
great.
smile.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting because it's not only the refugees are learning about foreigners, but the foreigners are also learning about North Korean refugees.
Yeah, although we do discourage the volunteers from trying to probe, from trying to get into their backgrounds.
Right.
That the kind of slogan is look forward, not backward. So let's work with the refugees from the point that they arrived in South Korea. So when we have our matching session, we will have the refugees announce when it is they arrived in South Korea and say, now, volunteers, this is your starting point. They're here. So let's not spend too much time, let's not spend any time trying to probe or get into their lives. If you want to hear refugee stories, we have a Track 2 program, and we have public events where refugees give speeches, but we want a safe zone for the refugees just to be students, and that we don't probe them at all.
And I think that's what it means to give an equitable education, that they're actually students. They're at the center.
Sure. And I mean, and just one more point about it. So when the refugees first come into this, after they escape and they get to a Korean embassy and they apply for asylum, they have to prove that they're not spies. Okay. Then they're flown to South Korea and they go through a National Intelligence Service check. And again, they're checking, are you a spy? Then they're released to the Hanawan centers where they're not checked for being spies. I mean, it's supposed to be re-education, but still they're checking them and probing them. It is part of South Korea's security system. Then they are released into South Korean society. They get connected to nonprofits and government agencies, and I mean, churches will find them and others. And still, people want to interview them about their past. For some, by the time they get to us, they're tired of people probing them and checking them, and they just want to be individuals. So we want to set the foundation that when you come to TNKR, you are a student. We don't ask them to get involved in any activities. We don't ask them to give speeches. We don't ask them to do anything. Just be a student. Now, when some of them express interest in public speaking, okay, we're not going to stop them. But the thing is, we don't encourage them in any way to get involved in anything. You are a student here.
So yes, one of the really highlight point during the orientation for students that you are students, and then you don't need to talk about your background. I mean, you focus on study. Then please get what you want, the education. So please don't look back. Please forward what your future, what you wanna be preparing for your future. So even though I don't know their background, I mean, even I'm a Korean speaker, but I don't ask. So even some of the requests from media or some other organizations, specific refugee they want, but unfortunately I don't know. I mean, I only know when they escape, but I'm the otherwise I don't ask anything unless they talk first to me.
And I think that's key. That you folks are really there. Your organization is really there to give them tools for them to have a better future here. Yep. And for those who want to get involved and help out, how can they actually help your organization grow?
All right, lovetnkr.org, and we set up the website Love TNKR because refugees kept saying, I love TNKR. So we made a website out of it. So if they go there, there's a drop-down menu, get involved, and the different options I talked about as far as tutoring, mentoring, coaching. Now we prefer face-to-face in South Korea for the actual language help. But if they click, they can see the Volunteer Leadership Academy. And there, anyone from anywhere around the world can volunteer with us. helping us, especially with building up the organization. So graphic design, social media, marketing, fundraising, editing, writing, videos. People can do anything. I mean, if you're on Mars, you can get an internet connection. You can volunteer with TNKR. It's okay. So, but the thing is, so you can help from anywhere. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that, we are a nonprofit. We rely on donations from people. So donate is a key thing to help the organization build up. If people have business ideas and they want to share them with us and help us build as an organization so we can be more effective in helping North Korean refugees, then that would be great.
Yes.
For years, we've had ideas about how to expand, but it wasn't until enough of our volunteers and fans had raised money that we could expand our programming. So we were basically stuck on 2 tracks for a while because, we didn't have enough, gas in the engine or whatever to get another track going. So now we have 3 different main activities. But yeah, people can volunteer.
Yeah. Please contact Casey. I mean, in TNKR, he's more like, I can't explain, but if we define TNKR as a body, then he's more like play a roles as a brain. So brain. Okay. Yeah, brain. So if any has a good idea or some suggestions or project idea, then please contact brain of TNKR. Then I will help like the arms and leg, and then I do more make a structure. I mean, not only idea, I'm really physically and feasible. We need a structure, so I will help that way.
So thank you both so much for your time today. So again, the website is lovetnkr.org.
That's right.
Right? Lovetnkr.org. There are many ways to get involved and to help this amazing organization grow. And the story of North Korean refugees, it affects a lot of us. And even me personally, as my grandparents were defectors from North Korea during the war. So I'm very happy to have interviewed you both today and for learning more about your organization. And before we go, we have our signature quick fire round for hashtag impact. And I'll ask one question and then you both can answer it. So are you ready?
I tried my best.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Complete the sentence.
Okay.
Making an impact means.
Okay, I'll first. I mean, I already talked about that. Making an impact means that listening voices from people.
Very nice.
That is my definition of that.
In my case, is being a magnet. That you set up a program that people are interested in, that they're looking for you.
And the next question, who inspires you in the way that you or that person is tackling the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals?
The way that I think is education really important for individual people, because I think it's my parents. I grew up the very countryside, so very lack of access for studying. But my parents really try to making opportunity their children can access a good education. So we are not rich, but they support me to study in abroad, and they let me not give up to keep studying, even though I'm studying PhD. So I think for me, I mean, the education is important. Is that because of my parents?
I'm going to say Howard Fuller.
Okay.
And I'm probably not well known. He's an activist from the 1960s. In 1969, he was called the most dangerous black man in North Carolina. He was involved in a number of social issues. He actually went to Africa to, meet with rebels there. I mean, he's involved in many things. But along the way, he learned that education is something that was holding back black people, especially young black boys. And he decided to get involved with that and made that his cause. And he later became like the superintendent of schools in Milwaukee. But he was a man of the system, but he realized that the system wasn't really interested in the kind of change that he wanted. So he left and he started an organization called the Black Alliance for Educational Options. And I later joined as a board member and worked with him for a number of years and learned lots of lessons about building an education program, about advocating for choice, about developing systems that empower the individual. And so, I mean, I've learned from many people, but he's one who I work with directly. So his point is, yes, create quality education by creating choices for people so that they can figure out what works best for them.
And last question, what could everyone do right now in this very second to make the world a better place?
Well,
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to say a lot of people need to stop what they're doing. A lot of people are doing a lot of bad things, just chasing after money and not really helping people directly. So I say a lot of them need to stop. Second thing,
Truth, yes.
Second thing is, okay, so Eungu mentioned I went to Harvard. So I have a master's from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And when I was there, I was infamous because I was fighting with lots of my classmates. They saw themselves as such experts, treating people like they're pieces on a chessboard just to be moved around. And it's like those people didn't have any initiative on their own. And I used to say then that when you create a program, you need to create it so that the people who benefit have power. And that unfortunately so many people are so in love with the designs of their programs that it's almost like the people don't matter. Just we have a wonderful looking program and we got a grant for it. Yeah. So as I said, a lot of those people need to stop what they're doing and stop being so much in love with their projects that don't really help people.
yeah, makes sense.
Very honest answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Well, think global and act local. I mean, that is a more like practical the lesson to the everyone, I think. So, yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you both so much for your time tonight. Thank you all for listening to this episode. And remember, the website is lovetnkr.org. And we'll see you for our next episode on #Impact. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed eavesdropping on this conversation as much as I did. I felt as if I was sitting right there in the room with them. Didn't you as well? One of the points that moved me most in this conversation is that the refugees that TNKR supports are treated equal as students, without prejudice, without judgment, just the way it is written down in Sustainable Development Goal 4, ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education for all. Make sure to check out their website at lovetnkr.org and find out how you can reach out to them and support their mission as well. Join us for more conversations on the Sustainable Development Goals and subscribe to our podcast from wherever you're listening right now so you don't miss our updates. You can reach us at hello@impact.com, and if you want more information about Season 5 and how you can share your story as well, then head over to impact.com/Season 5. Thank you so much for joining us today. I talk to you very soon. Bye.